So I find it helps with classical conditioning, especially when trying to apply the elements of classical conditioning to novel situations, to break the whole process down step by step into something that's similar to a mathematical equation or a flow chart. So if we start with step one, that's the stimulus response relationship. Every classical conditioning example has to be built upon a pre-existing natural stimulus response relationship, where an unconditioned stimulus produces an unconditioned response. In the case of Ivan Pavlov's experiment, we had the food as our UCS, which naturally produces salivation. Now, step two, therefore, is going to be when we now add in our conditioned stimulus. And you'll notice that I added it in before the unconditioned stimulus because we know that the order of presentation really, really matters. And we have to pair this conditioned stimulus with our unconditioned stimulus a couple of times so that our conditioned stimulus plus our unconditioned stimulus is going to yield our unconditioned response. As applied to Ivan Pavlov, we're going to have the bell, which is going to precede the presentation of food, which is going to yield salivation. And then step two is done a couple of times for good measure. In order for classical conditioning to happen, you really need to have repeated pairings, except for a couple of exceptions, which we'll be talking about. And then finally, we kind of need to get to almost like a show your work step where we want to know, did classical conditioning actually occur? Did learning happen? And so that's the final step where we now remove the unconditioned stimulus and we're left just with a conditioned stimulus. And the final step only works if learning has happened, because in the final step, we want our conditioned stimulus to now by itself yield a conditioned response. So in a Pavlovian sense, this would be the bell just by itself now yielding salivation.